Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the June Cypresswood Community Association meeting to order and ask the secretary to do the roll, please.
Club Patio. Here. Cypress Pond.
Here.
Eagle Pond Condos. Enclave.
Here.
Fairway Patio.
Here.
Garden Patio.
Here.
Golf Villas.
Here.
Greenfield Village.
Here.
Meadows.
Here.
Oak Grove.
Here.
Palmacia.
Here.
Plantations.
Here.
Sand Hill Lane.
Here.
Villas on the Green.
We have a quorum. Thank you, everybody. Next slide, please, Savannah. I need a motion and approval for tonight's stretched out meeting agenda. Jason, thank you. Make the motion. Got a second, please? Mrs. Goodrich, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I also need a motion to approve the minutes from the May 16th meeting. Mrs. Goodrich made such a motion. Anybody make a second? Randy Klein, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, this is the residents section. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. We have Dick Brennan would like to address the board. Mr. Brennan.
The only thing I want to, this is a form of a question, really. It's not a criticism or anything else, but I understand why we have to spend money to keep the golf course running. I understand that the guard shack, the people, we have to pay them. We have to do other things around here to spend money. The thing I don't understand is the wellness center. Why do we pay something for use the payment or the wellness center, and we don't pay anything to use the swimming pool?
The reason that decision was made is because the wellness center is very small, and having it as a membership-based thing would keep the numbers to where it was manageable. That was the reason why it was done. If we made it we could open it up from certain hours and have it open, but it would be a free-for-all, and it would be there's nobody to sit over there unless we're going to hire an attendant to do it. But that's why that decision was made years ago. That's up to. I mean, if they want to make it part of the package, they can certainly do that. I don't have any objection to that.
Maybe we can have someone on the board make a motion for that then.
I think that the amenities committee should should talk about that at their next meeting if that's something that the board directs them to do, because there are some implications that not because it's a financial even, it doesn't really add any revenue to the club operations, but somebody's going to have to manage it. And you're not managing it now. The club operator is.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Thank you. All right, down to our committee meetings. First slide. Next slide, please. Oops. Road and Drainage Committee, Mr. Bill Shira.
Thank you. Really, we have nothing new coming from the Road and Drainage Committee. What I ask all of you to do, be well aware of all the drainage inlets. The beginning of our rainy season kicks off on Thursday. If you look at the weather forecast, we've got the typical rain events coming beginning on out for the next 2 weeks. Tomorrow's the first day of summer, so that's when we usually see that. The most common thing we usually see is that debris has been moves into the system and blocks the system or moves through the system. So if you notice anything that comes up, please reach out to me and I'll go do the investigation. We'll go from there. Mark, is there anything you need to mention?
No, other than I noticed some of the lawn crews that do, for instance, the Enclave and some of the others, they tend to pile the stuff on top of the drainage inlet. I would ask that you just pay attention that they don't do that, particularly this time of year.
That's all.
Hey, Bill, question about roads.
Yes.
The exit going out of the main entrance.
Yes.
Used to have a left arrow
Yes, we're waiting for them to finish up there before we're gonna do it. We're gonna bring the striping crew that was in here, we'll bring them back out and we'll lay that down because there's obviously confusion in our community about who goes straight through, who's a turn only in there.
I'm wondering why we're waiting when we've had.
Because,
I've had 7 year access there. But I'm asking the question, why we're waiting?
we're waiting until they're done out there because they have a tendency to come back in, put markings down, until we know they're finished at our area. We did not want to invest in that.
So the safety of the residents is coming second to the money.
We'll take it under advisement and look at it.
That's all you ever do here, take things under advisement.
Yeah, I've temporarily put lines out there.
You can make such a motion, Jason, if you want to have them explore what the cost of doing that is and bring it back to the board for a vote once they have those costs, if you'd like to do that, sure.
Okay.
So that's a no?
I would think that the Road and Drainage Committee would probably look into something like that.
So you can make that motion and have it, I'm sure you'll get a second, and then it'll pass, and then they'll be directed to do so.
Okay. There's another question, so.
Is there a second? Yeah, no, is there a question?
Let me give you a little insight.
Hold on.
As a general rule, DOT, even though this is a private road, they normally go back 100 feet from the intersection with the striping once they're substantially complete with the job.
I've spoken with the supervisor over there, and he said there's no plans to paint those arrows on.
I noticed today that across the street they were striping it, so I guess it's a legitimate question why we're not having it striped at this point.
Yeah, I've been talking to the project manager, and I'll go ahead and confirm that if they're not going to do any striping over here. We may be able to ask them, and sometimes they're accommodating and say, okay, we'll go ahead and do it, but we'll look into it for sure.
Thank you.
Seems like the gentleman that brought the subject up is concerned about bodily harm happening to someone, one of our residents. I'm in favor of, and I will make the motion that we get the line striped at the exit point so that people know which way they should be going, straight to the left or to the right. So I make it a motion. We don't haggle over it and talk about it for 2 months. We get it done now before we have to have an ambulance come take one of our fellow citizens off to the hospital.
So is your motion to do it regardless of the cost?
Yes, I don't think that, yes, regardless of the cost, unless it's going to be over $5,000.
So Mr. Tassin has made a motion for the Road and Drainage Committee to get the arrows striped according to DOT specs, I'm assuming, as long as this cost does not exceed $5,000. Do we have a second to that motion? We have a second by Mr. Weiss. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
The motion fails. Next slide, please. It was by a voice. Yes, ma'am?
I was just gonna say I need signs, but we can get a sign put there back on the way out that says to go to the left, you stay in the left lane, to go straight or take a right, you stay in the right lane.
Again, it's the will of the board. The will of the board. The board just spoke. They said no paint, so I'm assuming they don't want to sign. The opinion of the chair, the no's were way outweighing the yeses, so the decision stands.
Sound like it from back here.
Do we want to roll call this board?
Yes.
Okay, roll call.
Roll call. Club Patio.
No.
Cypress Pond.
No.
Eagle Pond Enclave,
No.
Fairway Patio,
No.
Garden Patio,
Yes.
Golf Villas,
No.
Greenfield Village,
No.
Meadows.
Yes, would you read the would you read the, motion that these people are voting on?
The
motion.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's not a real difficult problem.
The motion is for the Road and Drainage Committee to stripe to arrow indicators outgoing of the community for a cost not to exceed $5,000. There was a motion and a second. Is that accurate, Mr. Tasson?
Close enough.
Okay.
Oak Grove,
Yes.
Palma Lucia,
No.
Plantations,
No.
Sand Hill Lane,
No.
Villas on the Green. Okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The motion stands as failed.
Yeah, 9, 2, 3. Thank you. Next slide, the Treasurer Advisory Committee, Mr. Scott Shira.
Good evening.
Get on YouTube land.
Do we have a next?
Right there. That's right there.
Good evening. Next slide, please. First up is our budget summary overview. This was emailed out to the presidents, so you have it. It's also, I'm sure, posted or will be at the website. We are year to date on point, if not below. Amazingly, because of what's happening with inflation. We're seeing some things that are creeping up. We're seeing other things that are coming in under. Still got a long way to go. We're only 6 months into the year. Did anybody have any questions? It was sent out, so any questions about the budget summary? Next slide. G&A 2023 budget. This is the first one we'll be looking at. The G&A budget has increases on most of the line items, or many of the line items, about half of them. They are just straight up new rates for 2023. I would probably say inflation, but it seems like things like the insurance had the greatest impact, the D&O and the liability jumped. You may have seen it at your own home. I noticed it this year. So it's coming in for 2023 at $31,911 versus last year the same items were $28,436. This is about a 13% increase. The other budgets were not this dramatic. And there's another part of this budget that is the utilities portion, and that will be included when we bring the final budget numbers to the board for approval. There's not anything remarkable about that. It's gone up a little bit this year, but it's not significant. So this is step one. Now, in the budget process, interesting how we do it. You will see each of the committee budgets as we go through this month and this meeting and next month's meeting. Once all of the budgets have been formulated, presented, they go to TAC. The TAC committee will sit down and go through and gather it up and create the final budget that will be brought back to the board for final approval. We have historically voted to approve budgets like this in meetings like this, but it's sort of a conditional approval because we come back with a final budget that gets a rubber stamp. And we've seen that 2 years ago, all the budgets were approved and then they were presented and we had to rework the whole thing. TAC had to go sit down and go through all the budgets and bring it down to an amount that we knew the board would approve. So,
and there's the presentation, and then there's a 30-day waiting period for that final.
Okay, and what Bob was saying is that by presenting the budgets like this, we give everybody 30 days minimum to think it through, look it through, ask questions.
Once the TAC brings their assessment They make
Yeah,
their final.
when TAC, yeah, the vote is 30 days after TAC brings it back, which would be in August with a vote in September. Yeah, okay. So a little bit of a backing into it methodology that we use, but it's good to do it that way because we get to focus on each of the budgets, and you'll see that tonight. So, because Fred will be bringing his budget and Rick his as well. So, did anyone have any questions about the G&A? Yes, Mr. Tesson.
You went so fast, I didn't get the chance to ask the question on the previous slide. I was wondering why, with 7 months to go, we have used up half the money that we were gonna dedicate, that we dedicated in our budget to general reserves, road reserves, drainage, and traffic control.
Okay, good question. Would you back up to the previous slide? And Mr., you're referring to the reserve amounts, is that correct?
Yes, where we're at halfway mark at 5 months to go, I was wondering where we're gonna get the.
Yeah, good question. When the assessments are collected from the 14 HOAs, the CAM, whether they get the assessment from an individual HOA in total for the whole year or whether they get it quarterly, it is put into our budget at the first day of each quarter. So what you're seeing is half of the reserve monies have been put into the reserve accounts. So on July 1st, we will get the next quarterly amount for each reserve fund, and then on October 1st we will.
50-50, right?
Correct. Actually, by October 1st, which is 9 months and 1 day, we will actually have the entire year's assessment in each of the reserve accounts. So we'll be, and we...
It's why the assessments are due January 1st of every year.
Yeah, that's a good point. The assessments, our HOAs are responsible to pay their assessments on or before the 1st of January, and then each quarter thereafter if they're on quarterly. Yeah. Good question. Okay. If you would, thank you.
Well done, Brad.
Right there. So I guess we need a motion to conditionally approve this.
That's usually what we do.
Usually what we
Anybody
do.
want to make such a motion? Mr. Klutner has made such a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? Mr. McCullough has seconded. Is there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. That's all we have on my side.
And you're going to stay.
Yes.
Next slide, please. Amenities, Martha.
Thank you. I'm still recovering from COVID. I want the board to know that at the April meeting of the Enclave Board, I officially resigned as president and also stepped off the board. I did that in April because I get a check from Bob along with about 40, 45, 50 other people. 30 of us, 25 to 30 of us roughly live here in Cypresswood. I thought it was a conflict of interest going forward for me to sit on this board and possibly, although it's not to date ready, possibly vote on Bob's company as a management firm. So I stepped off so there would be no conflict of interest, for those of you that are wondering. And Randy Klein has taken my place on the Enclave. Okay, next slide.
Whoops.
Whoa.
Can we flip that? Maybe? Or we look sideways? I can flip the screen. I won't. I don't think that'll work. I can hold it sideways.
I don't think that'll work.
Do we turn the sheet? I don't think you can do that, man.
You should already have this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not going to flip. Then I will ask you to look at what was sent to you prior to the meeting, or look sideways. I can tell you that the request 26,449.64, and that is a standard operational support request that's part of the budget. There's nothing new.
Any questions on the request? We have a motion to approve the request.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Jason. Do we have a second to?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodrich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You wanna do the rounds of golf?
I'll take care of that one,
Okay.
yeah, so you can
Thank
save
you.
your voice for another day.
This is the golf course report that we do at every meeting. It continues to show strength in the rounds of golf, as you can see from 22 to 24,107, 21 is 20,039, 2020 is 17,280, and 2019 is 1970. I will note that the 2020 number begins this month or in May to be affected by the closure to redo the green, so you'll see this number stabilize for the next 4 or 5 meetings. Any questions on the rounds of golf? Thank you. Next slide, please. The golf course condition report. We will aerate the greens again on July 5th. We generally do that 4 times a year due to a contractor crew getting COVID and then the axle breaking on the second crew. They did not do it in June, so we pushed it kind of halfway between, so we'll only be doing it 3 times this year. July 5th is the next scheduled one. The greens are fertilized weekly. The greens will have herbicides applied on a weekly basis. The greens are top dressed every 3 to 4 weeks. The greens are treated with a nematicide every 3 weeks, and the greens are verticutted every 3 to 5 weeks. Any questions on that? That's just, this is stated not only to bring you up to date to the condition, but also to show what we do with that agronomic, some of that agronomic report, or support that the board offers. Tees. Most stations are fertilized and herbicide every 3 to 4 weeks. The stations that are on holes 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 11 are being aggressively fertilized, acting as in a grow-out position or condition, and we will use material from the next aeration to help smooth them out. Green surrounds and approaches. Herbiciding will be done every 2 weeks, and they are fertilized once a month. Next slide. Fairways, herbicide is applied every 3 to 5 weeks. It's every, not ever. Pre-emergent chemicals have been applied to all all fairways, and full mole cricket preventative done very recently, like last week. Follow-ups on that will coincide with the full moon, which apparently is when the little critters go bananas. Yeah, if you've ever been on the golf course on the edges and seen what looks like a roach, that's what a mole cricket looks like, essentially. Nematodes are microscopic, you can't see those, even though somebody said the other day they saw one. Good glasses. The roughs, I've had this statement up there for a while. I've added another line to it. We expect to be able to maintain them to golf course standards until the growth of grass outpaces our resources. We are there now. We went 3 weeks with, out of our 3 rough mowers, having a half of one available due to mechanical failure. So we are catching up. We had massive overtime last week because we had relatively dry weather late last week to try to catch up. And we will continue to do that as the weather allows. But the grass is going to grow and grow fast. Bunkers. Edging, weed control, and increase in sand proactivity has started last month and will continue throughout the summer. Edging restarts next week, assuming that we have full crew. Next slide please. And again, we maintain 140 acres inside the Cypresswood community. Of that, 80 acres is golf course playable areas. We still have no golf course mechanic. We do have a guy supposedly coming in Thursday to interview. Cross our fingers. We currently have a golf course maintenance staff of 8, including a certified golf course superintendent. Any questions there? Yes, sir.
Are we looking to increase the staff?
I'll take anybody breathing.
Over 8?
Is that, if anybody who's breathing,
right?
they don't even have to walk.
Right.
They Anybody who is breathing. There's a problem out there, as we know, with the workforce. And when I heard that a salad maker at Longhorn was offered $22 an hour and turned it down, I almost fainted. So anyway, it's silly out there. Yes, sir, Mr. Kutner.
Yeah, the only comment I'd like to make is we don't have there is not a golf course mechanic right now, but we're fortunate
Yes.
in that the golf course superintendent, who normally would not be his job at all, has pretty darn good mechanical skills and has been filling in for that position as well, so we've been lucky in that regard.
And a secondary resource, being able to use the developer's mechanic on those big machines when available.
Really complicated.
That is a
mechanic who can fix anything from airplane.
Right, he's helped us get it so we have, I think, 2.5 rough motors available
That's
this
the
week.
way they've been getting by so far.
Yes, and just for, somebody asked in a prior meeting about leasing equipment. I talked to one of the leasing companies, and it's still 16 months away before they can begin to think about fulfilling our order that we put in 30, I'm looking at Bill because Bill was involved with that. Is that 24 months ago or so that we put in the order? And we're still 12, something like that, right? 12 to 16 months out before they can start fulfilling these orders, which is crazy. It's a little bit like the car market, if you think about that. Generally speaking, we get some stuff off lease, but no one's giving up their stuff because they can't get it. So it's a very interesting dynamic we live in right now. So you will see the bush hog out that that the LLC purchased 2 years, or is leasing from 2 years ago. It will be running along the edges, Greenfield, over along 12 and 13. And that is going to be out there as much as we can. That's a big help. So that, again, we'll mow it with whatever we have to mow it with. So trying our best. Okay, next slide, please. Landscape Committee, Mr. Wilson, and I guess Mr. Wilson and friends. I guess I'm going to help him, help do the presentation in case there's any questions. I assume, Fred, are you going to talk first and then go to the finance, or are you going to just jump right in?
We're ready, thank you. I brought my guards up with me tonight, just in case. They're actually here to serve as 4 good ears for a guy that has 2 very bad ears. So we're getting ready to move forward here. Could I get the first slide on the budget, please? Oh, okay, we're going to do that. If you want to. Do
you want to go to the budget first?
Hang on.
Go backwards.
That's okay.
You didn't tell me what order.
We can talk about it because I just want you to see some things. Go back up to the first slide. This is how it looks along the sidewalks right now. Next slide. And you can see some trash up there. You see trash down here. Remember all of this. Next slide. That's what it looks like going east. So you can see what the grass looks like right now. Yes.
Currently, whose responsibility is that? Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I checked on that. The responsibility is the contractor until the conclusion of the contract.
And then who?
Yeah, so that is J.R. Davis is the one that's responsible for that until it is turned over to DOT.
And then DOT is responsible.
Then DOT is, but they generally will sub it out. Rick knows a little bit more about that than I do in DOT side, but so I talked to them about it. What's the frequency of how often they should be out here? And the way they have it scheduled now, it's every 4 weeks.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. They just came out last Thursday, and if you noticed the big pond along Dundee Road, they started mowing around it and what have you. And I've had some crews out over the weekend weed eating the banks. And they're supposed to keep going on through and then cycle back again 4 weeks later.
Next slide. This, remember, you may have printed it out. This is areas that are going to be involved with bush hogging, which is a new responsibility from the CCA. This is the west part of that, the west part of it, and you will see that as on the budget as we go down it.
Yeah, this area, this is the driving range. Here. This is the driving range. That's our pond here. Their pond is over here. It's not on this picture yet, but these areas have been mowed by the developer for many years. He'd run his bush hog up there and mow it.
Right, so this is 18, this is 10.
Yeah, that's 18,
This
yeah.
is fairway patio.
So that is golf course property. And so at the conclusion of this year, he's gonna stop mowing it, and the community association will be responsible for mowing it. And so in that regard, we went out and asked somebody who I know does bush hogging to give us a number on what it would be. And they quoted me between 7,500 and 9,000, depending on the number of cuts. Of course, in the beginning, if it's deep, and they have to spend more time because they're basically billing it by the hour. It's approximately 15 acres that they're going to be mowing. So.
And I did get a second bid, and it's in that same general.
Yeah, we'll get additional bids as we get closer along, but we needed something for a budget number. So since they told us 7,500 to 9,000, we talked about it on landscape, and we put 8,500 in there. It may come in less when we get down to the actual number.
Thank you. Okay, we can bring up the budget slide now. What I want to go down by the line item. We have this is the ongoing maintenance, edging, trimming of all of the common areas right now. That has increased 3.6% for 2023. Underneath it, you see a new item which is called Dundee Road Mowing and Trimming. Now, if you remember before the road construction started, that has all been maintained by the landscape committee subcontract Prime Care. When the road construction started, they stopped doing that, of course, which meant they had time on their hands. But what coincided with that is that we received requests from some local homeowners associations for additional work leading into their communities that was not looking well at all. So as the landscape committee picked up that work and added it so it was an offset, what we gained as a benefit for not doing the Dundee Road mowing, it was now assigned to other areas within the common areas, and so that price remained the same. Now, what's going to happen is Dundee Road trimming, since that is has not been in the budget for 2 years, we're going to have to pick that up. If you want the front of Cypresswood to look like it's looked like for the past 15, 20 years, to have the front of the community kept looking nice.
It might be beneficial to go back to that picture again. Go back. Maris, can you go back? Just show. Keep going.
This is a good one. This is fine. We stay on that one. What we looked at now, this is the responsibility of the Department of Transportation to mow that. And it's the same responsibility that they had for the past 15 years to mow what we mowed, except the community wanted the very front of our properties, our community, to look good. And that's why we took that over from Department of Transportation. So now if we pick that back up, this is not done with mowers. This is where you can't go in there with 0 turns and go down and do a half a mile or more of mowing in just a few minutes. It's embankments, and it all has to be done with trimmers, and it all has to be done manually. So they have to go along there and do that. There are no mowers that go at a 45-degree angle to go down there to do that. So we put that line item in. We can go back to the budget now. We put that line item in of $8,400 to maintain that half a mile plus section all the way down from the ponds, all the way to the east side along Dundee Road. That's what that covers. Next is pesticide, herbicide, an increase of 10% there. Pine bark beetles, 5%. Shrub care and entrance, pesticide and fertilizers. Just so that you know, we go in and we take very good care of all the plantings that are at the very front entrance to be sure everything is getting fed and we got weed control. All of that happens on a regular basis. The supervision is the same for the year. Mowing, edging, and miscellaneous trimming at the clubhouse, that stayed the same. Pesticides, herbicides, we actually got a drop there. I went back to Total Pest Solutions and they said, no, we're going to do that less for you. We can do it for less money this year. Irrigation maintenance for the clubhouse is the same at $800. And now we go into ongoing area maintenance. Irrigation, semi-annual inspection, repair and replace, along with just when we have issues and we need our irrigation company, they come right away. We've left that the same. May I ask John that we hold the questions until the end and then we can address them. I want to be sure we go through this first so you can see it as a whole. Then we'll come right back to you and make sure we get your question answered. Tree service, 15 full days, it's $1,600 a day, rather than it's up from $1,400, so you see that increase right there. That part of the increase, of course, was from the cost of inflation, fuel, and everything else. Last year, the company was good enough to leave it at $1,400 when they said it really should be $1,450 a day to do that, and they graciously kept it the same for us for 2022. So now in 2023, it's going up to $1,600 a day for 15 days of service. Extra grooming is the trash pickup along all of the boulevard areas that they're currently doing right now, and along with Dundee Road. Now, I want to just give you an update that when we stopped picking up along Dundee Road, the extra grooming went from 2 days to 3 days a week, so that we got more pickup of the trash and the junk that people throw out along the boulevard. With the new year in 2023, we're going to end up picking that back up, as Department of Transportation should be done completely with everything in front of Cypresswood. It should be the normal drive through there. And Rick, you can talk about, just quickly that he is tracking that, and it should be that should be done so that our front is ready to go by 2023.
I talked to one of the contractor's employees, and they say that they're going to be substantially complete in December. That's what they're shooting for. They actually have till March to get done, but they get a bonus for finishing early, and they want their bonus.
Yeah, the only other part regarding the mowing in front, we're still talking to DOT a little bit about what's going to happen after it leaves the contractor. When I contacted them and say, how will they maintain it? And the lady sent me back an email saying they will maintain it to DOT standards. And of course, we know what that means. So I think that means about once every 4 weeks. So my question back to them is, okay, well, are you going to do it or are you going to sub it out? Because if you're going to sub it out, whatever you would have paid to that subcontractor, would you be willing to make that payment to us to subsidize us maintaining at a higher level? But we're not at the conclusion of that discussion yet, but just for your information.
Thank you. What you're seeing right now is we're in an awkward position at this point in time with this project not being complete until technically until the end of 2023, close to 2024. So there's a lot of unknowns that we keep investigating it, but we don't have answers yet. So the purpose of the budget is to give you the best we can do to keep Cypresswood looking the very best we can. And along Dundee Road is our area of challenge right now. And I just want you to know that this is, between Rick and Mark, they're doing a superb job of getting information, but we still don't have anything final. If Department of Transportation does that every 4 weeks, it might turn out to be 6 weeks. So what you saw in the photographs of the high grass is how it's going to look for 3 to 4, maybe longer weeks, a month, until they decide to get to it, and then they send their contractors in. So I just want you to be aware of what we're trying to do as a committee to keep Cypresswood looking the very best we can. The extra grooming that we have here, we're going back to 2 days a week on the boulevard, and we're going to add 1 day a week to do Dundee Road, and to keep that looking as good as possible. The increase here is a raise for the person that does that. That particular amount has been going on for almost 8 to 9 years, and I thought it was time to give him a little bump to say thanks for the great job he's been doing, so that's what's involved there. Common area plant replacement, I took it down from 2,500 to 2,000, just so that we can help keep expenses down, but that's to replace plants that die or somebody runs into or runs over. That's all that's for, is a maintenance operation. Weed removal and detailing of the beds, we're leaving that at 1,000. Mulch for Cypresswood plant area, I'm only going to leave $2,000 in there like we did before, but what we're looking at is this year we did the front entrance. This in 2023 we're going to move south on the boulevard and start working on the beds that are down in there, so that we can keep the planting areas looking good. New item, of course, we have a sign out there that you know what it looks like. And we have brought in budgeted there for pressure washing and painting the front entrance sign for $2,650. The one that was closest behind it was for $6,500. So we've got some people that want to work with us. Dundee Fence Project is the next area we're talking about. And as we talked for the past several months, you know what you're dealing with there with the fence project. There is some repairs that need to be made to the fence. But the fence contractor will not do any work on that fence until we get all the vegetation taken care of, get the trees, the palm trees cut, the other trees out of the fence, and we got probably half of that fence has got jasmine that has been on there for probably 15 years or more. We have to get all of that cut off before the fence contractor will come in and fix the fence. And so there's $20,000 in there just to get the vegetation off of the fence. And that is a long, tedious hand process. There is no easy way to do that. The jasmine is, some areas is 2 foot thick, and it's been on there, and it's in every ingrained, it's woven itself into every opening in that fence, and that's what it's going to take to get it down to where we can do that. The other $5,000 is to fix the fence. Mark, maybe you can, because Mark has been working on this for helping us out.
Yeah, well, we have a fence contractor that we've done lots and lots of work with over the years, and I asked him to come out and give us a price on just repairing the fence. Fred and I went down the fence and we counted all the poles that are missing, or broken, or bent over, all the caps that are missing, the wire ties, the tension wires, everything through the entire way, and made a list of it all. And then had him come out, we gave him the list and then wrote it with him and go over it just to get a price on what it would take
to fix that fence back up. Now, that's a very good fence. When that was put up, it was a DOT grade fence, and so it's a heavy gauge wire, heavy gauge poles, heavy Schedule 40 poles, much heavier than you'd have in your yard, for instance. So there's, if we can get the vegetation off of it, I think, and it's vinyl coated green fence, which is expensive. If we could get the vegetation off of it, I think we can salvage that fence and make it look pretty good. Getting that jasmine off of there, as Fred said, is woven right up in the wire. So we can kill it, you can chop it at the bottom and let it die, and it will die back to vegetation. The leaves will, but you still have all the roots and everything woven through the fence, and we gotta get those, at least 90-95% cleaned out. In addition, there's probably 10 or 15 palms or some other vegetative type that has grown up right adjacent to the fence, and in some cases into the fence, and all of that has to be removed. So it's just a tedious job, but that's what we're looking at right now if we want to get to salvage that fence. Replacing that fence would be hundreds of thousands of dollars at the going rate of what fence is going for. So that's why we went ahead and approached it from this direction.
Yeah, that's our whole purpose is to get the fence back up in a condition where we can look at it down the road. And that's the minimum it's going to take to make that happen in 2023. Contingency road, we've got $2,000 in that, and then we have the CCA West acreage at $15,000 that Mark talked about up front for the $8,500 a year. Irrigation for the electric meters, we figure that's going to, for the water meters, we figure that's going to be about $2,100. And we've tried to we've been tracking this for about 3 to 4 years to get accurate numbers. And what we do is we're finding that it just keeps going down because we're getting more accurate numbers, not because Duke is charging us less. So we've been tracking that over the years. So the bottom line is we have a 50% increase in the budget. I don't like the numbers, but this is what we're trying to do in 2023 to get Cypresswood back to what we think the community wants to have the front of area of Cypresswood look like. Now, let's go open some questions. John, you had a question there. And somebody help me out so I can hear what he's talking about.
Back in January, I brought up the fact that I had contacted the Medlock company to do some tree trimming, and a neighbor of mine also contacted them.
Excuse me for a second, John. Can you all hear him in the back? Let me give him the microphone.
I'm talking about the area of tree trimming in this budget. And I explained that back in January, I brought up the fact that when I saw Matlack Company was doing a lot of work along the boulevard, I thought, well, while they're here, a good chance for me to get some work done at my house. And I asked them to give me a price, and they did. And then I told a neighbor about it, and they also got a price to get some work done. The price that I was given was $400 more than a competitor who bid on the same job. My neighbor's job, the competitor, not the same competitor, but another competitor came in to bid against Medlock, and theirs was $600 cheaper. Now since then, just recently, as a matter of fact in the last 2 weeks, 2 other neighbors talked to me about having Medlock give a bid. One bid, Medlock was $800 more than a competitor, and another one, $1,100 more. So I see that we for some reason always use Medlock. And if my neighbors and myself can save, in one case $400, in another case $1,100, and these are not gigantic jobs, I'm wondering why we couldn't possibly save on the $24,000 that we always do this with him, as I was told in January. We always spend this on that. Why don't we look at some other competitors and save us, being that we are short of funds, as we all know, if we could even save on 24,000, $6,000, it would be $6,000 that could go toward, for instance, the fence project. So I'm wondering, did we have 3 bids on the Metlock jobs that they're going to do? And if we did, I would be happy to supply the names of the contractors that bid them by so much on little jobs.
Well, I think you make a valid point, John, and certainly give us the numbers and let the other people come in. These are budget numbers we're working on now, so if we can find somebody who'll come in and substantially lower, we can always adjust those numbers.
My question was, did we have 3 bids? Or were we gonna skip that question?
They didn't skip them.
No, there are not 3 bids in this budget. It's the Medlock number that was used in this budget, so. But we can bring the others in and get them to give us numbers as well. Historically, that has not been the case. I just had Medlock did work in my area, and he was lower than the others. But we'll be happy to bring the others in.
My question is, the fence project. My understanding is that fence was built by DOT. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Have we asked them to do it again?
No, it was part of a right-of-way consideration when John Wood donated the frontage to the DOT.
So
for the right.
why is it our responsibility to fix it for John Wood? Why would that be our responsibility to fix it for John Wood's property?
Part of the golf course and our security.
Yeah.
It wasn't, he didn't invest in it, he doesn't own that fence.
Back when that was done in about 89, wasn't it? Something around there.
1989.
And of course, at that time, it was John Wood property. The state wanted additional right-of-way, and so in consideration for giving them that right-of-way, they negotiated having, because there used to be, many of you don't remember, but there used to be a ditch there that held water. It was quite a large ditch, and one of the reasons that ditch was eliminated is because there was a little curve right by number 18 and in that road, and there were a number of fatalities that occurred. People went straight and the road curved a little bit and they went over into the ditch, and the way it worked is when the car went in, it flipped over. So that was the impetus to go ahead and eliminate that ditch, and DOT incurred all that expense. In consideration for the additional right-of-way, they agreed to sod the area completely. They furnished us irrigation material that was installed. They paid for the jasmine, and they paid for the fence. But it was on John Wood property. It still is, and that property now, of course, under our lease arrangement is our responsibility. So I have talked to them about that. The only thing we can do with them is file a claim for any damage that was done by any of the contractors to the fence. And there's a couple of spots that I've identified that I think they did do some damage. But that's the only recourse that we have now with DOT. With regards to removing the jasmine and just fixing the fence. Of course, a lot of that damage has occurred over the years. When the jasmine grew up and we had the hurricane really did, it just pushed the fence. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with. So, I hope that answers your question.
Not really. I still don't understand why we are responsible for improving things that aren't ours. And John Wood, when he was asked that question at the only meeting he's been to since I've been here, is that he didn't think they would do it again for him.
Okay, well.
I was asked to make notes while you went through I know you can't hear me, but you went through the entire program, and I missed asking this question. What is called the clubhouse area service, I understand the clubhouse is part of the amenities. I assume then that some of the area around the clubhouse must also be part of the amenities. And my question is that really part of the amenities that we're doing when we say clubhouse area service?
Just, I don't have the microphone, but just so that you know, we were asked to take care of the clubhouse, where they asked if we would do it. I said yes. So we've been taking care of that. You can assign it, if you want to assign it to the amenities committee, fine. You want to move the budget, go ahead. I'm just giving you what we do have been tasked by the Master Association, of which you're all part of, to do what they ask us to do. So I'm just responding to what they ask.
I'm just asking for clarification, because somebody asked you to take care of the pool, you know that's an amenity, but if they just ask you to do it, throw it into your budget too. The grounds around the pool, or maybe you do the grounds.
We do the grounds around the pool.
So that should
We
be,
do all of this area back up here as part of what we do for the Master Association.
shouldn't that be all in the amenities budget then, and be part of the cost of the amenities?
Not my decision. You as a committee are gonna have to sit down and decide what you wanna do, rather than questioning why I'm doing it. How do you wanna run the program? You guys get together, talk about how you wanna divide this up, and we'll do what you'd like for us to do.
Why does it
I
matter?
don't make the decision to do that.
Why does it matter, John? I mean, you're paying so much for the amenities and so much for landscaping. It's going to come out of the total budget somewhere. I mean, point taken. Let's move on.
It matters.
I just said point taken. Let's move on.
You
Your
asked
question's been answered.
You asked me a question,
I
why does
did.
it matter? I'll tell you why it matters. You asked the question, give me a chance to make an answer. It matters because the cost of the amenities should be separate from the CCA. We own what is called CCA property. We pay for the taxes on that property, and we own it. We do not own anything in the amenities. We pay the real estate taxes, we pay the insurance, we pay the maintenance, we pay the repairs and replacement of all of that, and we don't own 1 penny of it. Matter of fact, we pay 1 penny a year in order to have the right to do all of that for the real owner. We're not the owners. And so it does make a difference whether money is attributed to the CCA at their expense or the amenities as their expense. It
John,
should be clarified in the budget.
I recommend you get the 13 of you together and decide what you want to do. I don't make the decision. I didn't say, boy, give me this clubhouse. You might want to sit together as a group and decide what you want to do as the president.
Mr. Tasson, did you sit on a member of the TAC committee? You could certainly bring that up at our meeting on Tuesday, right? Is that next Tuesday? Yes, that could certainly be brought up as a budget item that could be shifted some of the responsibilities to different areas. It's just moving money around.
And that TAC meeting is next Tuesday at 10:30.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Just thought I'd let people know.
I have a question on the landscape budget.
Yes, sir. I got it. Get some steps.
I listened to the last meeting because I wasn't able to attend, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to repeat a question. But I want to go back to, we spent $1,400 to mulch the entrance area. And my question is, what are we doing with the large area on the east side and the west side that there was no mulch put in? That currently has old mulch but wasn't mulched. And then there's some areas as you drive in where they mulch the front but didn't mulch the back side where there's mulch as well. So I was just wondering, and maybe it's just that we just need to have more clarity when we're going to do a job for money and we're paying somebody, like exactly what's going to get done. Because like my expectation when I heard $1,400 to mulch the entrance would have been, everywhere I see mulch currently, there's gonna be new mulch, and there isn't. And I don't know if I'm the only I'm a vice president, I don't know if I'm the only person that noticed that, or didn't notice that. So now you say we're gonna spend $2,000, we're gonna move away from the boulevard. Well, the boulevard still needs some attention, the front entrance. And then a second question would be, is we have $8,500 up there for Prime Care to do Dundee Road mowing and trimming. And then we have $8,500 down here for covering the additional acreage that Mr. Wood's been mowing for us currently. The standard of that is it going to be the same standard as what the boulevard is mowed at? Or are we going to be, not as an insult to you, Bob, or is it going to look like the rough when we can't keep up with it? It looks like we got dead grass and hay laying in the entrance area. I'm just asking for clarity so I know what to expect with what we're paying for. Does that make sense?
Fred will respond to the mulch. I haven't been involved in that at all. But with regards to the mowing, the way we budgeted it was they would do those 15 acres approximately every 3 weeks.
But what about the frontage of the entrance? The entrance area.
That would be done weekly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be part of their weekly process. That means every week, Prime Care would be out there doing the entire front section of Dundee Road. Yes, John?
Was there any bargaining with John Wood that maybe the 40,000 or 4,000, no, I think it's 40 acres that we mow for him or maintain for him for free, part of our lease, we just kind of toss that in, 40 acres that is not part of the golf course. It's just something that we maintain for. Why not negotiate and get some compensation so that we don't have to have another $8,500?
I was just asked to put it in the budget, and I did. So somebody's going to have to address it other than me.
What about the mulch thing?
What was the mulch?
The mulch.
I'm sorry? The mulch question.
Oh, the mulch question. I'm sorry. That whole area up front, we wanted to define that area, but we have to work on some weeds, and it's been a lot with the construction work. We decided not to do that. There was $1,400 worth of mulch put out there, and we got what we paid for. It's just that front section doesn't look as good as it should, so I can go back in there and see if we can get it cleaned up and get some more mulch in there. But right now, I'm just trying to keep our maintenance at that area as minimal as possible until we can get through the end of the year and see how it's going to look.
Do you mean more mulch for the amount of money we've paid? Because I've had several people, this vice president is not the only person who has noticed that there was mulch, maybe it was 2 years ago, and then it was supposed to be remulched this spring, and only about half the area that we all thought was mulch area was covered with new mulch. The rest was left to go.
Okay. But if we can get me some specifics, I'll follow up with Prime Care to find out about that. But we're not done with mulching this year. Just wanted my main target was to get the plants as we come in, to get all of that area mulched in there and cleaned up.
Well, you have two large areas, one on the east side, one on the west side, that didn't get mulched. It's like, you can't miss it when you drive in, it's part of the entrance. So it's like we did half the job. I said, you can't miss the area on the east and west side when you pull in. It looks like we did half the job. I mean, I'm not picking on anybody. Am I the only one that just looks like we did half a job?
No, we all saw
I mean, come on, we're all grown adults here. It looks like we did half a job on the entrance for
I'll follow up with them
$1,500.
on that. I'll follow up.
I'm not proud of it. I mean, I don't think it.
We'll follow up with it.
There's a lot of people that won't complain.
No, everybody sits here with their mouth shut.
That's right.
Come on,
you know, boys.
Let me clarify about tree trimming.
Do you think it looks nice out there? Or do you think like the job was halfway done?
No. Let's address what you just said. People sit here and keep their mouth shut. That's inaccurate.
Okay.
People here are on committees. that do the association's business. We volunteer our time.
I understand.
Nobody here on this board wastes any time.
I didn't use waste time, by the way.
Let me clarify tree trimming. We've gotten bids from other tree companies for like work. A lot of these companies come in that don't have liability insurance or don't have business licenses, or they come in with a ladder and a rope and climb up a tree to trim the limbs. At least Medlock has booms, which is safe for their operators. We've gotten prices when we did the clubhouse area from other tree trimming companies, and they were all significantly higher. But it's a safety issue for the people that do the work to have the right equipment to do the work.
And insurance.
The four companies I'm talking about all use a bucket that's a hydraulic bucket, and the guy stays in it and he doesn't fall off a rope and a
He rented that piece of equipment, if I remember right.
I want to go back to the fence one more time.
I guess I have the fence on my mind. I have asked several different people and on several occasions, do we need that fence? And I really haven't got a good answer. Why do we?
Oh, I can tell you a community over in Lake Wales that wishes they had a fence like that because of all the trespassers they have.
That fence isn't going to keep anybody out.
They can
If they want to get in here, they're not going to, they can jump that fence.
That is, and again, that's a choice for the board to make.
I agree, but I'm just asking the question, why
Sure.
do we need the fence? Why do we need the expense of the fence when it's useless? They come through the fields, they don't have to go over that fence. They come through the cattle field.
Well, that makes a good segue. But I was going to break while we were on this because it's kind of in between landscape. Ladies, can you go back to the map, please? Please. It is an issue in this area here where our golf course, the fence on the front entrance ends about here. Correct, Mark? Am I about right?
Yeah, that's where it is.
And then there is no fence here. There is a small fence here, and it goes along that part of the property right to about there, right along the maintenance road, correct, Mark? Okay. So there is I'm going to call it a turnaround somewhere in here, and there's another access point here that is allowing fishermen and other uses every single day. So one of the questions this board has to ask is, do they want to secure this access point? Because it is a small barbed wire fence that they can hop off and then they're in. So it goes to the question Mr. Weiss says, do we need to secure everything? Do we need to secure this? Are we doing that fence for aesthetics? What are we doing it for?
Good question.
There was a chain link fence that went all the way down. The golf course fence ended at 18, and then John Wood owned that pasture and everything else, so he put a chain link fence that went all the way down to where that house and the merge lane used to be. That was taken down in response to the state because they leased that land from him. He intends to re-fence in front of his property, whether it's going to be a chain link fence or barbed wire fence, but he is going to fence down to here. That's the corner of his property.
Well,
Now,
it's a little farther up, but same difference.
yeah. Now, the balance of it around that pond is about 1,000 feet. And we looked at, I'm looking at what the cost would be to put barbed wire fence up there, to keep all those people from coming into Cypresswood, into the ponds, walking around the ponds and fishing in there. And you see them there all the time now. So.
How tall is
But
the
I don't
fence?
have a number for that yet.
How tall is what?
How tall is the fence that's in place now?
the one here?
I guess both
It's-
sections.
How tall is
What was
it?
that, Jason?
How tall is the fencing that's in place now? How tall is the fencing that's in place now?
Well, the fence there is 6 feet, and the fence that John Wood took down was 6 feet. But what we're talking about around the pond is, chain link would be very expensive, is barbed wire fence.
And just to clarify, this is one of the parts of the parcels of the lease arrangement, just so that's why we are responsible for it as a community.
So, area 2, you're saying we're fully responsible for area number 2?
Yes, that's part of the golf course parcel. If you look on the property appraiser site, that's part of the golf course parcel.
Or area number 2, the pond? Or is it?
Up to the pond, yeah. To the DOT pond, yeah.
Right. Yes, sir.
Well, I raised my hand when we were talking about trees, so I'm one back.
Okay.
Thank you. We had a tree removed in our yard, and we got a quote from a company that trimmed trees. I will welcome anybody that wants to come by our house and see what we're going through. And it's 3 months old, 4 months old, and let you see. And it's Austin Tree Service. He continuously lied to my wife. She had called him and asked him to come. He says, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. He ain't never come back. I would appreciate it that y'all wouldn't even consider him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, back to the budget, please, ladies. Savannah, thank you. Okay. Any other discussion on the landscape budget proposal? Remember, this is yes, Pam.
As far as the fence goes, you spoke with a company that says that they won't do any repair as long as the vegetation is there. Is that the only people that you've spoken with, or have you gotten other quotes from other people that may be willing to do repairs with vegetation there?
It would be very difficult to do, but no, we just talked to Williams Fence was the only one we got, because one, we have a long history with them, know the quality of the work, and
Know the quality of the work, and you know, there's 2 different things we're doing here. We're not asking people to bid this work. We're asking people to give us a budget number for this work. That's 2 different things. If we say we're bidding this work and we're going to approve it next month, then they approach it differently than if you say, look, I want you to take a look at this fence and tell me what you think it's going to cost to do this, and we'll give you as much information as we can to support it so we can get a pretty accurate number. It always changes once you get right down to bidding the work.
And but just one little thing, just remember that's, like you said, it's a budget. So you're not approving for that project to get done. They'll have to bring the work to in whatever format the board wants to. That's a good distinction. Yes, Mr. Dodd.
Just for your advice, I would recommend also that you consider talking to the folks that do the herbiciding within Cypresswood and discuss the possibility of using Remedy, which is a very powerful herbicide. It kills oak trees. It's so powerful. I know with Jasmine, you're still going to have challenges with that integrated within the fence, but it may expedite the process, and it might make it cheaper. That's all I'm suggesting.
Good thought. Any other questions on lands? Yes, Mr. Tasson.
Many people, I think, forget what is said at meetings. I usually don't, and I do make a lot of notes. One of the things that is said is when someone says, I make a motion that we spend $10,000 on trimming those trees on the boulevard, and someone says, well, wait a minute, why don't we get a bid? And then a group says, oh, we always use him, and it's budgeted anyway, so it's already passed. The budget seems to mean to the board that that's what we're gonna spend. And I don't know of ever hearing someone say, after the budget is okay, that gee whiz, we had a bid of 3 people, and this was the best bid. One was 8,000, one was 7, and the other was 65. And all 3 are good quality people, and we're gonna use the one at 65, because that's the best price. We do, Bob, frequently say, when a motion is made, it's budgeted, why are you even asking?
Well, that may be true. I will make the point, Mr. Tasman, that you are on the TAC committee that makes those policies and recommendations to the board. And I have been to, I believe, every TAC meeting. I've never heard you bring that up at a TAC meeting. So bring it up at a TAC meeting so the TAC can formulate a procedure if we want to change the procedures to bring to the board for approval or not. That's where that should be done.
I'll tell you why it's not brought up at the TAC meeting, because the board of directors here should have once in a while an idea of their own, a motion of their own, and a vote of their own, rather than you say, do I hear a motion to do this? Somebody says, like Linda, I make the motion, somebody else says, I second it, all in favor, aye.
And you voted
That's
no
the way it
twice.
goes. I didn't vote against not anything today.
No, I don't say.
With regards to the money being in the budget, when we're doing the expenditure, what they're doing is they're not saying, oh, it's in the budget, so we're just gonna spend it. They're saying, where does this money come from? This money is within the money budgeted for that year. That's that's the distinction they're making. It's not money that's not been budgeted, it's just money that is in that category. There's a difference, John.
Many people want to see, Mark, many people want to see bids done. They'd like to hear the 3 bids, and I'd like to see that we're taking a quality operator to do the best price that we can get. And we don't do that.
We do that. For instance, on the pump project that we did, which is a big expenditure, we did get multiple bids on that. On some of the items that we've had a relationship with people, the spray people, for instance, we've never gotten better numbers than the spray people that spray the ponds. So they've been very receptive, and I don't think they've raised their rates in a number of years. Medlock, I've had Medlock do work, not just in this community, in other communities, in Lakeland, and Lake Wales, and all over the place. I don't think I've ever had him beat. That's why we've used him so much, and he's very responsive. If we call him and say, we're not happy with this, he comes back and takes care of it. If we say this was not done right, he comes back and takes care of it with no additional charge.
I'm going to give you the information on 4 bids he did get beat on. And the jobs were done.
That's fine,
And the jobs were done in a very professional manner.
Well, John, you should have given those to us already. There's no reason, we would accept them. If you have good numbers, share them with us.
I brought it up in January, and Fred couldn't hear me, and we said, the answer was, oh, we already have it budgeted, we always do it.
One of the things you gotta look at, John, is that you ask several people to come in and say, I want to take that tree down and do this. Medlock gave you a price. He gave you a bid. Somebody else came in and they thought, oh, this is my chance to get in Cypresswood. I'm going to cut this thing down to the bone so that I can be in here and possibly be considered for something. So remember, in that bidding process, you're comparing apples and oranges to what we asked to have done. We get a price on all the equipment and a crew of 4 to 5 for a day. What do we ask him to do? We don't know what we're going to ask him to do until the time comes for us to do it. And then he gives us, out of that, how many days it's going to take to do it, out of a budget that's already been approved. Because it's approved to do the canopy, the things that we ask. There's a lot of things. A lot of companies, you ask them how much is it going to cost to bring in a crew of 4 and the equipment, things like that. They said, well, what do you want us to do? He said, well, we don't know yet. And so over the years, we've had resources that have integrity. We trust them, they trust us, they do a high quality job. And so what you look at is they've been doing that for us for a year, and they've earned our trust at a very good price that is more than competitive. So what you look at is, let's say we had somebody that was in here for 10 years and they did a great job. And then they built the trust, they're honest, their billing process, their quality, everything else is above board, and they've served us well. And the thank you for that is, you know, we think we can find somebody to do it cheaper, but we have no idea as to how the quality's gonna be, what it's gonna be like. Have they got all the insurance that's needed? So if you had worked at a job for 20 years and you had done a good job and you had been faithful and you had been there, and your boss comes up and says, you know, I think I can replace you with somebody cheaper, but I don't have any idea as to what kind of quality and work we're going to do other than what I saw on their resume. So we have over the years built a relationship with these people. It's not a good old boy network. Let me tell you, these people go above and beyond what we ask them to do, and that's the reward we get, is we work with them as closely as we can. They're on our committee, the landscape committee. You've got 2 presidents on this committee. Believe me, we go at this with the integrity to get it done right. We know what we're looking for when we bid a project, and that's exactly how we're going to present it in a budget that has worked for the past 15, 20 years. I've been involved with it now for over 10 years, and we've watched it grow a little at a time. This year we've got some unknowns. We're just doing the very best we can to keep Cypresswood looking as good as we can, and so that the homeowners, when they drive in here, they feel proud. I'm going to check on your mulch for you and find out what's going on.
I appreciate it.
Are these guys perfect? No. Are we perfect in what we do? Did you make a mistake in the jobs that you did sometimes? Yes. So yes, we will do that. And I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you, because we get so busy looking at other things. Yeah, we miss some things once in a while. And you're doing your job, and thank you. But this is the budget we've been tasked to do. We feel it is the best we can do, and I'll turn it over to you, Bob, to see what our next move is.
I'm going to have the treasurer come up because he has a couple of comments in regards to this, I believe.
A couple. There's a couple of line items that are on here that are one-time expenses. The fence, the sign sprucing up.
That's it, yeah.
When we get this into the TAC committee and we go through and we look at this, there are things like we have a front entrance improvement reserve fund with $16,000. So, you know, it's a small line item, $2,650 for sign painting and pressure washing, but we've got the funds there to apply to that. So when you see this laid out this way and you see a 50% increase, just know that TAC will look at, discuss, see if there aren't ways, now that we've built up our general reserves, that we can shift some things around to help our budget assessment for next year not have to take a direct hit of the entire amount of the increase. So look at it from the standpoint of these are the things that this committee has examined, identified, they're proposing to this board to keep our community moving this direction. And so I know it has to go to a vote. It's a conditional vote, because again, once we get to the end and we give you the complete budget, we can begin to look at individual items if so be that what the board would want to question or decide.
We'll have another opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have another opportunity. Sir.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions on Landscape's budget proposal? Conditional budget proposal. Do I hear a motion to approve it?
I'll approve it.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Rod has made the second.
Chairman, we have a roll call vote.
We will do a roll call vote for budget items. Yes, sir.
Ready?
Clopadio,
Yes.
Cypress Pond,
Yes.
Eagle Enclave,
No.
Fairway Patio,
Yes.
Garden Patio,
No.
Golf Villas,
Yes.
Greenfield Village,
Yes.
Meadows,
No.
of course, Oak Grove,
No.
Palmacia,
Yes.
Plantations,
Right.
Yes.
Sand Hill Lane,
Yes.
8 yes, 4 no.
4, budget passes conditionally. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
You're welcome.
Next slide, please. Traffic Control Committee.
Good evening. Just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you moved to Cypresswood strictly because of the golf course? How many of you moved to Cypresswood because it had a golf course and it had a gated entry? I think all of us, for the most part, are enthused about the gated entry. I've heard numerous people, I want to live in a gated environment. Fred, Landscape Committee, you guys are doing a hell of a job. I commend you because I'm in and out of communities that look like crap. We don't, so thank you. Tonight, traffic is wanting to bring our proposal for a budget. Next slide, thank you. Some of the little things that are happening. The minimum wage, according to the state, is going to be going up to $12 an hour. That is...
It's going up to 11. We're going from 11 to 12.
Yes, I'm sorry. By the end of 2023, I think it's October, the minimum wage is supposed to be 12.
Correct.
So this will reflect our staff being at $12 an hour.
Minimum wage.
Minimum wage. They're not, what was it, the salad preparer at Longhorn?
Get 20.
Yeah, so our guys do not do salads. I'm also, as far as wages, I'm requesting a 3% increase in our supervisor wage, which has not gone up in at least the 5 years that I've been associated with this. So that is primarily the increases as far as staffing is concerned. Any questions on that before I move forward? Okay. If I'm not mistaken, just about everything else on my budget is staying the same, except one line item. Under other operating costs, we're showing a new proximity reader. $42,000 is the ask. Right now, there are 2 bids in, waiting on a third one, but the 2 bids, $42,000 should be more than sufficient to cover everything involved. You have the software that will be installed on computers at the Gate Shack. You may be looking at new computers at the Gate Shack to handle some of this MacDaddy software that has to be done. You've got the electrical underground, under the pavement to get to where the proximity reader would be sitting as far as on the resident lane. And for those of you who don't understand what we're contemplating, for the last 40 plus years that Cypresswood has been in existence, the multi-code clicker that gets you into the resident gate has had the same code. So you could go down to Home Depot and buy you 100 of those and sell them to every ne'er-do-well that you want to, and we don't need no fence on Dimney Road because they'll just come through the resident lane, use the clicker, and have a good time. So the multi-code clicker kind of went out when Fred Flintstone went off the air. That's about the best way to say it. This is very, very old. The new thing is either RFID or barcode, and that's the proximity reader. That mechanism will read whether it's an RFID or whether it's a barcode on the resident's vehicle. What does that mean as far as maintenance and management? Everybody that is here and that has a vehicle would be entered into the database. You would be assigned whatever, the RFID number, whatever, would be tagged to your vehicle. You sell that vehicle, the management part of that would then actually delete that code from the system so that if somebody else bought your car and knew you lived here, they wouldn't be able to come and just drive through the resident lane. If you are a landlord out here and you're renting some property out and you get a change of tenant, the same thing. As soon as we are notified that a tenant has changed, then that particular RFID barcode that was assigned to that vehicle is deleted. There's no further access through the resident lane. Okay? I've heard many people say, I don't want to put a Cypresswood sticker on my car. I don't want people to know where I live because I'm concerned about safety and And the rest of us are like, I'm kind of proud of where I live, but rest assured that we have the option of either having or not having the RFID or the barcode with a community name on it. That's an option. We don't have to, okay? What this is going to entail, and one of the bids is closer to the 42 than the other one, but it is a system that would basically have an app that all the residents would have on your phone that you would plug in who is coming to see you. That information is transmitted to the gate shack. The pass for your visitor or your vendor is printed out right then and there. When they identify themselves and show their ID at the gate, then a pass is ready for them. So that's really Mac Daddy. That system is in use at the Great Outdoors Campground in Titusville. And one of my neighbors suggested I find out who they use because it's awesome. It is. It's the most expensive one, but awesome sometimes means that. So what I'm proposing, this budget item, is to be brought forth so that everybody kind of knows what we're looking at. We can continue on just like we are with a multi-code clicker that's been in existence forever. If you leave and take your clicker with you, you have access to this neighborhood forever and ever and ever. We've been talking about this for 5 years. The committee decided this was a good year to throw it out there so that people would know what we're looking at as far as expenses and what some of the capabilities are. That's all I've got. Questions? Yes, sir.
Are you saying the clickers?
Are you saying that the clickers cannot, the codes cannot be changed in our clickers now? Is that what you're saying, or are you just saying it's been done that way forever and ever and ever, so that's the way it's gonna be?
I just walk this way and say Bob's steps.
That's a very fair question. We could go in and, for those of you that understand the term dip switches, that's basically what is inside all of those multi-code clickers. They could be changed. Yeah, probably more than 3,000 times.
You'd have a workshop for that.
We could have a workshop for that. We have 1,061 home sites in here. We have probably less than 100 residents here right now. It is going to be a major undertaking to do that. It will also be a major undertaking that once the multi-code clickers go away, we're going to have resident participation to show up to be assigned the respective RFIDs or barcodes to be placed on the vehicles. So either way, I mean, what you're saying is could be done. It's not going to be done by the Lone Ranger that stands at the gate. You know, someone pulls up and they're in the resident lane and my clicker's not working. Well, no, we changed the code. Well, so yeah, there's going to be growing pains to do it that way. There's going to be growing pains to go with a whole new system. But it's a fair question. Anything else?
Do we know how many stickers was applied for in 2022 and how much each one of those stickers cost the community?
John, that's a fair question that I don't have a concrete answer. The question was, how many stickers were issued in this year, 2022, I'm assuming for new residents and or tenants, whatever, and what the expense is to the association in printing those. I will get that information and have it for you.
All right, thank you.
Good question. Jason?
Do you know what some of the other communities are doing when they're making the switch? Because we're not the first community moving from an old system to a new system. So when they make that transition, I'm sure you've asked those kind of questions on how do they make that transition, or the companies are giving you some.
I can't stand here and honestly tell you of a situation where a community that is as established as we are, with the numbers of residents that we are, have done this type of switch. Most of them, the closest one that I can think of would be Ridgewood Lakes area. They have a proximity reader. That pretty much, I want to say, was in effect when they opened. Sola Vita, very similar. They do proximity readers. And those were pretty much in effect. They never had the archaic stuff that we have had. So. And if we ever do get there, I will be happy to accept volunteers to help sign people up with RFIDs.
Kevin, the Vice President.
Yes. Yes, Kevin.
Say you do sell your vehicle and you have to have another one put in, is that going to cost the owner more then?
That's a great question. The question is that if you sell your vehicle and your little code goes with it, do you have to buy another one? Right now, I'm going to say no. Okay? The expense of a clicker is $39, $40? What's the expense of a clicker? $40. $40, okay? 15 on Amazon, so much on Home Depot. My understanding is that to manufacture these RFIDs or these barcodes are like pennies as opposed to dollars. Okay? I've got a very close friend, actually he's my brother, so he's still a close friend. At one time priced for me the RFID. He is in gate operators, etc. And his suggestion was, if you ever decide to do that, what you might want to consider is having the residents bring all their multi-code clickers to you, and for every one clicker they give you, you install an RFID on their vehicle. And that way it gets those out of the market. I don't know if maybe we could sell the used ones on eBay or something, I don't know, but it should not be a big expense that when you sell a vehicle or change cars, company car, whatever, it should not be a big expense to reissue a different number for you. Okay. That's all I've got.
Thank you once again. Mr. Shires, Treasurer, do you have any statement, or is your statement from the previous budget very similar?
The only thing I want to say is that I know we did rural on the last budget, and we had some dissent, and we had some most for. And while we're looking to, approve these budgets conditionally, when we put together the final budget, you have to take traffic as it's presented. You almost have to remove the proximity reader as an item within the budget. You have to drop it below that budget. You have to say, we'll do the budget setting aside the 42, and we'll include that in the final budget as we build the assessment number. And your statement was that it was an ask. And it gets us thinking, if we can fit it in our budget, and everybody wants to do it at the board level and in the community, then we get the benefit of it. And Rick, thank you, because that was a great explanation of the value of having a proximity reader. I didn't realize that. So I hope it was eye-opening for everybody. It's a better way for us to handle that. So I know that, and when I saw these budgets originally, and I see these items kind of within the budget, I like to see a year over year keep us the same, and then I like to see the next item below that be, if we can fit this in, this makes sense for our community, if everybody approves it, that we would include it. Now, we brought this budget here tonight, and at the bottom line, it's 140. That's hard to read. 140,000. So we can conditionally approve it. Remember, it's not final until we put all the numbers together. We can deal with it any other way you want. I want to make that comment because it being conditionally approved means stay tuned. We got more coming. If that makes sense.
Hold on.
No, just a simple question.
I just wanted to know, maybe I missed it, but what was the percentage of the increase?
It's about a 38% increase.
With the proximity reader in it, and Mr. Sharma said that's a one-time charge, whatever. But Rick, is there a known annual maintenance cost at this point?
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
Until we decide which.
Because that would be in the annual budget.
Would you need to inventory replacement codes or cards or things, and that might be a line item.
Right, so it's really a one-time ask. That's why Scott made the point of after it.
Yes, Scott, you said 140 as the budget number. That's in the column that says 2022. And in my sheet, the column says 2023, says 193,000.
Correct.
So that's 1 point, okay?
You are correct.
All right, I just wanted to, it's only $50,000, but the other point I want to add to what you said was that if you kept referring, and I know you're a straightforward guy, and I like the way you present things because you're very open about it, and you're very transparent about a lot of information I think we didn't get before. So I congratulate you on that. I've done that in person with you in the past. But it isn't up to the audience, and it isn't up to the people living here. It's up to 8 people can make this happen or not happen. Not 1,000, not 3,000, not 50, not 100, up to 8 people. And everybody should understand that.
True. Mr. Dodd?
That's true, John, but just keep in mind that we are not unlike a city or a county or a state. We use representatives. We have 5 county commissioners that decide what's in the best interest of 700,000 people. We have 14 people sitting in the table They're looking out after the 3,000 that live here in Cypresswood. That's not why I'm up here. I do want to drag home an important issue, because I think I'm pretty sure I have observed this more than once. I am going to ask that the board consider voting on and making a recommendation that all votes except for approving minutes and adjournments be roll call votes. It is under Robert's Rules of Order. There have been times when I'm pretty sure I have observed directors who did not vote. That's not an option. You must vote. You either vote yes, or you vote no, or you abstain because you have a conflict of interest. And the only way to adhere to that is to have a roll call vote so that we and all of the audience know exactly where you stand on the issues. That's fair to us as a community. The second point I want to drive home is, there's two other quick points. As to the card reader, I've been hoping we would do that for a long time. It's a very expensive item. It may be so expensive that we can't afford to do it in 1 year. But it doesn't mean we can't set aside some money 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to at least get something headed in the right direction. Unfortunately, we've been stonewalled enough in the past that we haven't even been able to think about even bringing this to the board. So my point to the audience, it doesn't have to be a one-time big expenditure. We could accrue for it over time and find a way to fund it. I'm going to tell you, I sit on the TAC committee, and this is my last point. We've got the most complex, challenging year since I've been here to try to figure out what to do given all of the moving parts that we have going on right now. And a lot of people have no clue how difficult this is. Okay? We got to deal with each one of these budgets. We've got to sit down and go through all, again, specific reserves. We've got a pool we got to try to figure out how to fix. We've got bids going out for operators to operate the restaurant, the golf course, or both, etc. We've got to vote on whether to buy this property and take on $2.5 million more in debt when we're headed towards a recession. That's a sidebar comment for what it's worth. And so I'm just telling you on behalf of the TAC committee, and frankly the process we have today, all of these recommendations should have come through TAC first, and then we would bring them to the board after we vetted them and make a recommendation to you. Right now is we bring them in here, sit down with you, do some kind of conditional vote, okay, wait on the conditional vote, and then it still goes to TAC and we come back with a recommendation. For 30 years, or 40 years, we have operated without any formal policies, any formal procedures, and just done it unlike any city or municipality would do it, or county would do it. You're not going to fix that problem over time, but at some point in time, we've got to start fixing some of those problems. And so that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I'll always say I'm through, I'm not. But my last one is, one of the ways we could solve a whole lot of these problems is if we had a community association manager. Just like the town of Dundee's got a manager. Winter Haven, Haines City, Lake Wells. And if we had and everybody thinks, poor Bob takes this on from 12 to 14 hours a day, plus trying to be a golf pro, plus trying to do all the things he's doing, and he gets zero compensation for being the city manager for Cypresswood. Well, folks, we're past that day. And it's not going to be, it would not be a cheap thing to try to figure out. It's not I don't believe it's $100,000 a year job. But if you could find somebody part-time who had experience in government, who could sit down and work through all these processes, work through these procedures, figure out what we should RFP and what we should not RFP, and what should we bid on and what should we solicit bids for, and how often should we do it, and at what dollar amount. It's all complicated. But we're all a bunch of volunteers. We get paid nothing. And so my point is, it's a complex year. It's going to be a tough situation to make some decisions,
but understand, be patient with us, because TAC has got a big responsibility. They've never had a bigger one than to try to figure out what kind of budget we're gonna do, and more importantly, what are we gonna do about the vote concerning the golf course for the amenities package. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
So does any, Mr. Dodd asked something first in that, yes, he did ask a question, if the board has the want and the will to make a motion, move that we do these via roll call, so to put the, does anybody want to make such a motion? Okay, so I'm gonna say Mike Pazuski made the motion, Jason seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call. Roll call.
There we go.
Can you make sure now, I'm not intending that to deal with minutes and adjournment.
Right, except for minutes, agenda, or we're talking about votes.
Yeah.
Right? Is the board clear on that we're not talking about doing roll call for the agenda, or minutes, or to adjourn? That one person, shoot that one down. Okay, so
Thank you.
that'll be our last voice vote on something important. We'll let that one go because it was I believe it was unanimous.
Yeah.
We have the landscape, the conditional budget going from 140,779.18 to 193,166.27. Do I hear a motion to approve that budget, conditional budget increase?
So one question.
We're on traffic now, aren't we?
Oh, I'm sorry, traffic, pardon me, I misspoke. Traffic budget of 193,166.27 for 2023.
I have one question. Can I just ask one question? Because Scott, you had brought it up. So if we were to conditionally approve this, when it goes to TAC, will you all consider, as Mr. Dodd presented, if the 42 really didn't work, would it be like we're looking at adding $10,000 in a reserve, like the signage out front, so that at some point in time we can move forward into the 22nd century?
Yeah.
That's exactly what tax responsibility is to do, yes. Yes.
And if we don't conditionally approve it, then what is the alternative? Does the traffic control go back and then redo the budget?
It still goes, that's again to Mr. Shire's point, that we do this kind of backwards. It is probably going to come out of a recommendation somewhere from TAC at some point to change the formula, how the budgets get sent to the board, so that it comes out and it's in the recommended format, so we don't go back and forth. At this point, it would go to TAC, I believe, either way. So I mean,
So why are we voting on it then if it goes to the TAC either way?
Because we do it, because this is the tradition, this is what the board is authorized to do every single year.
Yeah.
So until the board changes its, and that has to come from the board itself or from a recommendation outside of TAC.
It promotes discussion.
That's true.
I agree. It promotes discussion, that's good, but to me, these are the topics that would be much better in like weekend workshops where more residents can participate.
Got a lot of chairs here that aren't filled.
Yeah.
Not a workshop.
It's not a workshop, true. Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the budget?
Conditionally.
You do? Conditionally, yes, sir.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, roll call.
Okay. This vote will be for adjournment? No, this vote. This is to conditionally approve the traffic control. Club patio,
Yes.
Cypress Pond,
Yes.
Enclave,
No.
Fairway patio,
Yes.
Garden patio,
No.
Golf villas,
Yes.
Greenfield Village,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Oak Grove,
Yes.
Palma Sia,
Yes.
Plantations,
Yes.
Sand Hill Lane,
Yes.
10 to 2.
10 to 2, the motion passes. Thank you. Next slide, please. Next month, we'll continue with road and drainage and the amenities budget presentation. There is one other item that was brought to my attention that I want to bring to the board's attention. The area across the street where Cypress Creek, the commercial development is, they have petitioned the city of Winter Haven for a zoning change from C2 to C3. I just got this today, so I really don't know what that entails. There's a big bucket list of items that may or may not warrant board members or Winter Haven residents that are in Oak Grove or Palmacia to voice their concerns. But I will, once I get more information, I will send it out via email so that we, did you get a note? Did you get a notice in Palmacia?
No,
Not yet. I haven't got one in Oak Grove as well. But it is scheduled for a July hearing in front of the city of Winter Haven, the Planning Commission. It may not mean anything, but it's something that we should definitely look at. We certainly don't want the zoning to change to something that would look badly upon Cypresswood. So that's where we can make our, at least the Winter Haven residents can make our voices heard. But I will give you more information on that as it comes to me. Anything else to be brought? Oh, Mr. McCullough?
Just short thing. Rick, can you get them to delay a little bit when they let the visitor lane through? When we're doing the resident gate, they're opening the gate a little bit too fast. And I've had several people complain to me, plus I've noticed when they're trying to beat me, when I'm coming through the resident gate, they're trying to beat me coming through the visitor gate. So
I'll mention it, yes.
Good suggestion. Anybody else? That's another hand. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I'm surprised it wasn't brought up tonight. Many people have called my home and asked why the flags on all the lawns, what's going on? And of course the answer is that Duke Electric is going to run new underground wires through our entire community. And as I understand it from one of their employees, replace transformers as well. So we're going to have a new electrical system. But what they're trying to do with the flags is prevent what you might call serious accidents. For one thing, many of us have gas lines under our front lawns and going to the side of our houses. And if you don't have yellow flags where that gas line is, you could have a serious problem if they dig a trench where the gas line is. The problem that I am going to refer to right now, though, is that there are only 3 flags, at least on my property, there are only 3 flags identifying lines. There's a yellow line, a yellow flag identifies the gas line. The blue flag identifies that you have a water line somewhere under that flag, and they don't want the electrical people, of course, to cut the water line, and then you wouldn't have any water in your house. There are other flags that should be flying, though, on our lawns, because in my house there are 2 TV cable lines coming in. There's no indication where they are, and they cross from one corner of my property in the front to the side of my house on the opposite side of the property. So they can't run a trench through my lawn without digging up my TV cable. And I happen to have 2 of them. So there's a good chance that I could lose 2 TV cables. That's supposed to be, by the way, a purple flag. And I dare say that probably none of you have a purple flag. The red flag is for electrical currents. We all get our electric right now underground. I think all of us, I'm not certain, I haven't checked every house, but every one I've ever seen, the electric line comes underground to the corner of your house where it comes up to a meter and then goes into your fuse box or your circuit breaker. So that's another one that has to be worked on. Also for those of you, and my neighbor happens to be one of the people that has reprocessed water line coming in. That's an orange flag. And that should be in the lawn next to my house, because if they dig a trench through there, they're gonna cut that water supply, and then they won't be able to use it. So there are 6 flags that I know of, and probably most of you only have 1 or 2. I have 3, and that's the most that I've seen, and they're all around. They're all around. It makes the yard very colorful. So.
Why don't you call Duke Energy, please? This is not our problem.
On the community association website, there's the splash page that the community has, Duke Energy. There's a contact there for the the person for Primor's, the contractor's contact on there. He welcomes any and all calls. I said, what happens if all 3,000 people call him? He said, I'll be very busy. But he said, please tell them to call me. This is our matter, ours meaning the contractors. Call Duke, call the Primor's. But thanks, John, for the notification to the crowd. They may not be going to the website. That's a good point. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Potter.
I know it's going long, but I gotta do my job, so. Thanks, man. Last time I spoke to you guys, I asked you guys to go home, think about it, yard sale. I just want to bring this up, get a vote. We're either going to do this thing or not. Right now I'm looking at July 16th and 17th. I'm proposing a one-time. If it epically fails, if we wish we never did, then we never do it again. But I'd like to make a motion to have a garage sale throughout all of Cypresswood. I'm just hoping that maybe we could put some money into maybe just a sign or an advertisement in a newspaper. 16th and the 17th of July. I've made a motion.
Is there a second to that motion? You're making the second, Mark? Mark, second the motion. Okay. Let's turn the page. We need another column.
I don't know what happened to the adjournment part, but anyway.
That's okay. We haven't quite got there. Next page.
Quick question before we.
Sure.
Okay, question on the motion.
I'm pretty sure that some of our CCNRs prohibit garage sales.
True. CCNRs there is a Cypresswood rule that is board directed that can be, I do not know is there one in Oak Groves at CCNRs?
I'm fairly certain that we have in our governing documents that garage sales are prohibited. Yeah, so.
Okay, well then that would dictate your vote.
Okay.
I mean, I guess. I guess.
I would assume that would be, the interest would not only be the neighborhood but the community. That's part of why that would exist, but that's fine. I mean,
yeah.
I guess I will have to abstain from this vote.
Okay.
But if they have it, that they can have it, and then we vote, let's say 8 people vote to do it, they'll have to do it. And then they'll be doing it illegally.
Yeah.
His vote is for the whole community. That's what his motion is.
Let's just vote on it, and yes or no. That's it.
Mr. Weiss, question.
I brought that up to our president, and he said he sent you a letter about that, that we would do it if it was CCA sponsored, not by our HOA.
Well, first of all, the CCA doesn't have any legal control over the individual neighborhood. That was my response to him. It's up to your HOA to decide if your HOA is going to participate. That was the idea. My worry is that July 16th is too quick. It's a month. I know you got to pick a date somewhere. It's just too quick because somebody has to.
Didn't a woman present about doing this, running the whole thing and everything at one particular time?
Yeah,
And that was in Sandhill, right?
Yeah, we brought it up because there was on our HOA meeting at the beginning of the year, there was support to have that once a year. We had a lady in my community who's done it in the past, volunteer, and then she came and gave a little presentation. We were not looking for a specific date, we were looking for
approval
expression of interest by the communities. So we weren't committing to it, but we would say, all right, please check with your community, and we'd like to get a response at a following board meeting to get an idea of how many are willing or interested in participating. Then move to when she was going to do a second presentation with all the details fleshed out in response to questions brought by the board, and then there will be an actual vote on whether we're gonna have a once-a-year yard sale.
Could we make the motion to add it to the agenda for next month's meeting, so we give.
Mr. Potter can do it, what do you?
So the presidents could look at their own guidelines.
Okay,
To see
so,
if we're governed by them or not.
Mr. Potter, will you withdraw your original motion, please?
Withdraw my motion.
Okay. So, Jason, help Mr. Potter with the motion.
Help me with a motion.
Could we make a motion to put on the agenda for July 18th, for us to decide whether or not as a community we want to have a community, whether they're interested in having a community garage, yard sale, whatever you want to call it, annually. And that would give all of us presidents and vice presidents to look at our bylaws to see if how we can vote or not vote based on that issue, and whether or not we want to talk to our own legal counsel about the ability to be able to change that if our community would be interested in that, because we can do that.
What he said, so.
Yeah, but that's just asking, a vice president asking for something to be put on the agenda. We don't need to vote on that. That's just an item that I can add to the agenda. So that's fine if we're gonna
Gives
just.
all of us 30 days to figure out.
So your job is to find out if it's legal in your community or not first, if it's allowed. Yeah, right. Anything else?
One more.
Oh, geez, you have two, sorry.
The other thing that I brought to your guys' attention is I was having a conversation with Rick Reese. And do we want to look at security? Is that something the board wants Rick to look into? And I said at that time I would help you if you need it. I don't have time, but I'm going to. So I'd like to make a motion whether or not the board wants to look into security as far as golf courses, golf carts, ATVs, and whatever goes along with that.
You talking about traffic patrol?
You're talking about hiring an outside contractor to provide security services for the community, if I'm understanding.
Yes, do we want to even look at that, or do we just want to, no? Could we look at that in 23?
Yeah,
We
that's
conditionally approve the budget, so why not? Put it on.
Okay, we have is there interest, let's do it by, because that could be an agenda item and then it doesn't have to be a vote. By a show of hands, who is interested in that being something that traffic control bids? Probably, to Mr. Dodd's point from the back, it's probably not a 2023 item. It's probably a 2024 item, but to look at the possibility of having outsourced contractual security for the community.
What about
Raise-
just any form of security?
What's that?
What about any form of security, not necessarily outside?
You're two different, okay, we'll just say security, we'll have a security question, because it could be where the CCA or not CCA, who would hire them? That's a good question. That'd be a good question, a security question for the community.
Would that be similar to what the Polk Sheriff suggested a couple of years ago to us, developing an
That's the Community Assisted Patrol. That is a service at the Polk County where volunteers. That is not. That is. I don't think so. I think he's talking about when somebody does something wrong. There's a way to arrest, or not arrest them, but apprehend them, deter them. Yeah, consequences to actions. I think he's talking about that would not be a volunteer. I'm shaking my head at the attorney because I'm sure that's what he's thinking too. That has to be somebody, right? No volunteers. It has to be somebody who has some sort of. It wouldn't be arrest power either from a security company. Anyway, by a show of hands, who's interested in traffic control, exploring that idea for what I would assume would be a 2024 budget item?
Can I make a comment?
You can.
I could see the
why people would be interested in that. I just think we have so much on our plate right now. That's, yeah, at least.
By a show of hands, raise your hand if you want traffic control to explore that.
Nice try.
Is that 5? Okay, there's your answer.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys. Thank you.
Anything else?
Sorry for keeping you.
Next slide, please. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.